Okay, so I'm going to share my slide again. This is the agenda and that I mentioned earlier and sort of went through. So you can see how the timeline is going to be broken down. And then, as I mentioned, our conversation, how to be in conversation. And I was sharing a slide, a picture of Shantae Randall, who is one of our breast cancer advocates and who just was a fearless leader and championed so much for spreading awareness, not just within the African American community, well, just in general within the breast cancer space and with anyone. She also was very adamant about spreading awareness and outreach on the continent as well. And she started Tumaini African Breast Cancer Outreach towards doing that. And so she's our why. She is one of our whys and the reasons why we do the work that we're doing here and the reason for this space, to have conversation, to learn more, to be able to take that knowledge and information to be able to really share that with others and to be able to really impact our own lives as well. And so it's with that we really started getting more involved. I would say Tiger Lily started 14 years ago. We really, in terms of our disparities and initiatives and focusing on inclusion, diversity and inclusion, while it continues to be a thread amongst the work that we do. We really started in September of 2019, focusing more on amplifying our voices, especially the voices of Black women through listening summits. So we did that starting September 2019. And then we launched our NBC Disparities Advocacy and Educational Outreach campaign in November of 2019. And that was in partnership with grassroots, state and local, national and global health partners. And that was a part of our 7th annual Young Women's Breast Health Day on the Hill. We participated in the SABCS San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium's fireside chat, and where we were able to bring together one of the largest groups of young Black women assigned to that conference in its history, which was phenomenal, also surprising, but at the same time, it's so great that we were able to do that and to be able to raise awareness and connect that bridge between patients and scientists, being able to really have a conversation in that space. And then in January of 2020, we assembled a cohort of 20 Black women to represent cities in which Black women have the highest mortality rates for a year-long intensive and immersive program that through our Angels program. So I'll share more about that. And actually, we're also doing recruitment for that. So if anyone feels moved or knows anyone who would be interested in learning more about how to be a voice within their community, how to help to engage and spread awareness and also policy, how to be an advocate in that space, I'll share a link later that you can then definitely be able to apply for that. Okay, so these are some of our former and current Angel advocates. Those are some of the cities that they've been represented from within: Memphis, St. Louis, Dallas, Los Angeles, Virginia Beach, Atlanta. Some of these cities represent the cities that have the highest mortality rates of Black women. And so we're really trying to change that, especially in those locations, and reduce that mortality rate. Our No More Disparities and Pull Up a Seat conversation. Last week we had No More Disparities, which is a conversation for us and by us that really focused on creating a safe space for Black women to share, have honest conversations. Those conversations are not recorded. It's just for us to really understand and be able to talk about some of the inequalities that we're facing, especially within the health space. And Pull Up a Seat, which is where you're now a part of, we're going to be able to have a bi-directional conversation with healthcare professionals, where we can have a conversation and talk about more about the topic, which is, again, as I mentioned, is on when living in your zip code kills. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can share for Julia Mawes to share a little bit about GRASP and the work that they're doing, and then we'll introduce our patient experts and get into our keynote speech.
So you can leave that screen up. Actually, it helps.
Okay.
With me. So it's great to be here. Thank you, Shonda. This event is a collaboration between GRASP and Tiger Lily. GRASP is an organization that Christine Hodgson and I founded in 2019. What we do is we bring together patients and scientists to learn from each other. So just like scientists are experts in the science of cancer, oncologists are experts in treating patients with cancer, but we strongly believe that patients are the experts in living with cancer and need to have a voice. We are both white women, and we are very aware and interested in doing our part as white allies, in highlighting our privilege and highlighting the disparities that women that are Black and have cancer face every day. So we partnered with Tiger Lily, and we're using this model of highlighting patients as experts to highlight Black patients as experts in not only living with cancer, but living with cancer while Black. So living with cancer while also experiencing racism. Here you see some pictures of events that we've had where the patients are talking with the scientists. It's a very informal discussion. It's very intimate and authentic. We really highlight the humanity of the scientists and of the patients. A lot of the people that participated that day were like, "Oh, I love science. I didn't know that." Or, and also when you look at the pictures, you oftentimes can't tell who's the scientist and who's the patient, because at the end of the day, we're all human. This is a disease that affects millions of people across the globe and will affect more and more. So we are very fortunate to partner with Tiger Lily, and very happy to be here and highlight the voices that need to be heard.
Thank you so much, Julia. Excuse me. Now I would like to also introduce our patient experts. We have Jamelle Singleton and Shoni Brown, and I'm going to ask Jamelle if you could please introduce yourself and please share about yourself and your story with the audience, and then Shoni, if you can speak as well. And let me know if you would like for me to stop the share the screen so that you can be able to speak, or if it'd be helpful for you to have it on.
You can leave the screen on, because I can probably just go ahead and kind of go through a little bit of my story on here. So my name is Jamelle Singleton. I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. May 1st of 2020, last year, I was diagnosed with stage 3 invasive ductal carcinoma that had spread to the lymph nodes in my armpit. So since then, I had a full year of treatment, 6 rounds of chemotherapy. I had a double mastectomy without reconstruction, and 20 rounds of radiation, as well as 17 rounds of HER2 antibody treatments that was specific to the kind of cancer that I had. So I just finished active treatment at the end of April, so I'm fairly new out of treatment, but really I've just been just spending that time to heal and get myself together after going through a year of treatment. But really, I've just been so passionate and dedicated to, meeting and talking with other breast cancer survivors in our community, and just trying to raise awareness, because, we talked about this last week, that we don't see a lot of people that look like us, at the doctor's office, or, during treatment, or even necessarily in our local support groups. So it's very important to me to be able to help create a space for us and have our voices be heard. So that's why I'm here, and thank you for having me again.
Thank you so much, Jamelle. We're so glad to have you here. Thank you for sharing. And Shoni.
Hi, I'm Shoni. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So a little bit about myself is on the screen as far as what I've been doing with my life prior to and after cancer. I was diagnosed in 2015. I found the lump myself, after coming home from a jog. So basically, I was that person that was running every day and doing all the things that you're supposed to do, I quote unquote, because there's no such thing as doing everything you're supposed to do, because cancer doesn't care who's healthy and who's not in that sense. But my journey with cancer started prior to my diagnosis. My mom was diagnosed late with pancreatic cancer because she was ignored. And that was my first glimpse of the healthcare system and how racially biased they are. To see this woman in front of you crying because she's in that much pain and you ignore her and tell her to take some Tums was just not acceptable to me. And, you know, as a 20-something-year-old, they ignored my call to tell them to stop and really listen. Unfortunately, my mom passed away before my 23rd birthday, and I was diagnosed 2015, finding my own lump. I went through about 5 months of chemotherapy. I actually had to stop beforehand because I actually got an allergic reaction. I couldn't go through the rest of it. I've gotten if anything you can think of that what could go wrong during treatment, that's what happened with me. I went through radiation as well. I went through reconstruction, but wasn't given many choices, and unfortunately had to flip-flop back and forth after finding other women because I didn't know anyone else. Even when I sat in the chemo chair in the room getting chemo, I didn't see anyone who looked like me. They often walked up to me and asked me, "Baby, excuse me, why are you here?" And I would reach down and say, right here. I mean, I wouldn't be sitting in here just for fun. And that was also a red flag to me that there were no women my age. I did not see a Black woman at all. I want to be 100% honest. Like, even their support groups, maybe if I saw one, they were twice my age, and they were not in the same frame of mind that I was, thinking about still my immediate future. They were already like, okay, we're retired, and I've had my kids, I'm not worried about that. And I'm here thinking, what's going to happen to me? Am I going to ever have children because of chemo? So fast forward, so I have been, within the last year or 2 or 3, just doing as much advocacy as I can. I am a ambassador for the Breast of Us, which is a group for women of color, for educating and for just being able to give ourselves a space and to show other women of color that we are out there. And also I've been a part of Susan G. Komen's research and advocacy. I cannot speak today. I don't understand. Advocacy program, just getting myself out there as much as possible, because there has to always be, in my opinion, there needs to be women of color everywhere we go. And it's not just in the United States. It should be everywhere we go. It doesn't matter. And I think that we're lacking in that. And it needs to continue, where we're pulling up those chairs or we're making our own table. So that's my little spiel.
Thank you, Shoni, and for your spiel. It's your story, and thank you for sharing. And both of you, Jamelle and Shoni, for sharing and being here and sharing your voice. It takes time. We've heard from other patient experts. It isn't something that happens right away. It happens at its own time. So I just thank you for being in a space, even regardless of however you might be feeling, to be able to share and to be able to share with those on this call, to be able to let them know about your story, your journey, so that what has happened, despite where you live in Long Island, and the access to care. Jamelle, you're in Pittsburgh and had a different experience. All these experiences. How do we make this better? How do we continue to save lives and try to help as much as we can by getting our voices out there? So I just thank you so much for your commitment, your dedication towards helping other people. and just honor you both. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Dr. Dede Teteh, who is a public health professional. She, with a wide breadth of experience across academia, research, policy development, and strategic communications. I am going to ask if you would like to introduce yourself and share your story as well. And then I'll hand it over to you to please, I'll stop sharing my screen so that you can also be able to share yours in your presentation. So we're so excited to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you, Shonda. Thank you, Shoni, Jamelle, for even allowing me to be a part of this space. So Tiger Lily Foundation, GRASP, everyone for being here. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. I told a little bit of my story last time. So my name is Dede. Everyone has quite a bit of different variations of how to say it, but my mama calls me Dede. And it actually literally means first daughter. I'm originally from Togo, West Africa, and have been through some interesting ups and downs. So the conversation that we're really having today is around why, when living in your zip code kills, and that really translates into where you live, where you work, play, age, and pray. It determines how well and how long you live than your genetic code. So these are known as social determinants of health factors. And what I do as a social behavioral scientist is I study this in the context of social and environmental determinants of breast cancer survivorship as it relates to exposures of chemicals known as endocrine disrupting chemicals in our personal care products as it relates to breast cancer. So I will go through, this is more of a conversation than me presenting to you all. And this is a part of initiative that I have been really blessed to be a part of called Bench to Community. And the question that is on the screen to get us started on this topic of exposures from the environment as it relates to our personal care products is really, are the chemicals in our hair products increasing my risk for breast cancer? So that's the question that's on the table. So if you happen to come in earlier during the talk, during this shared space, you heard me playing India Ari's I Am Not My Hair, right? So what does hair have to do with this discussion? So India tells us that she's not her hair, but the soul that lives within. And Solange, which I didn't get to play, has had a little bit more flavorful language, proclaims that touching her hair is problematic and dangerous. And some of us are nodding our heads, yes, ma'am, because we've had those experiences. And at some point, Willow urged us to just whip it back and forth, regardless of what the haters are saying, right? So when, as a part of this project that I've been doing with the community, we ask the question, what does hair have to do with anything? And when you ask a Black woman about their hair, the response is everything. So these are women that we had conversations with in Southern California, and 91 women to be exact, hairstylists, breast cancer survivors, et cetera. So when hair has to do with everything, it has a lot to do with your health. And I mean, unfortunately, it's very important. It's almost scary how important it is, because a lot of women won't just go somewhere in a ponytail, which means we're not gonna walk out the house looking crazy. That's just not how we do things. That's not how we've been raised. That's not what our mamas taught us, right? But we also have to acknowledge the politics of hair in our society, and that upholds a Eurocentric ideals of beauty as a gold standard, and the acknowledgement of both Black men and women that we've had conversations with about the realities of this discourse. This is probably one of my all-time favorite quotes, and it comes from one of our Black male participants. And it really speaks to how if the majority of commercials and ads that we saw look like Lupita from 12 Years a Slave, everything will be flipped on its head. Even white women will be trying to get their hair nappy. Y'all have hair products that turn straight hair nappy. So we had a lot of conversations around racism, discrimination, and I'm just gonna put it out, this is what we're talking about: discrimination, racism, and why in 2021 we have to have legislation, at least here in California and in 11 other states, we have to have legislation letting people know that you can't fire me because I wear my hair in locks, you can't fire me or discriminate against me because I wear my hair a certain way. Like, I can show up as my full self, but only Black women, we have to have legislation to let society know that. And it's because of racism and discrimination, period. And that'll preach all on its own. So when the reason why I take kind of like that slow process into this is because the products that we use in our hair are not necessarily the products that that we think about when we think about health outcomes, right? So we're going to switch gears a little bit, and there are going to be there are 3 products that are on the screen. I am one of those quote unquote hollaback preachers. I'm not a preacher, but if you've ever been to a Black church, you either say amen. So I'm going to ask you to join the chat, and I'm going to put this question on the screen. In the context of this conversation, we just had a quote that said, hair is everything and it also impacts your health. So let's check your knowledge a little bit about what are in your products. So on the screen are 3 products, and I want you to use the chat, 1, 2, or 3. Which one do you think has the most hazardous chemicals? I'll give you all a couple of seconds. So go ahead and type 1, 2, or 3 on the chat. All right, so what do we have? 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, but I imagine this is a trick question. Julie, I'm not trying to trick you, I promise. It's a conversation, All right, so we've had a few people vote, not the just for me though. We'll see. So let's see what you all are, if you are correct or not. So this particular slide has 4 takeaway points that I want you to leave with. Number 1 is the total number of chemicals in the products you use is not the same as the number of ingredients listed on the bottle. For example, Kaboom lists 8 ingredients versus the 229 chemicals that are actually found in the product. How do I know the number of ingredients? I actually bought these particular products and counted the number of ingredients listed. Number 2, these products include some of the chemicals with the highest health hazards, phthalates and parabens, which are known endocrine disrupting chemicals. Diethylphthalate, for example, is a synthetic substance that makes plastic more flexible, and it can be found in your toothbrush, your automobile parts, and your cosmetic products. Why products that you put on your face has anything to do with the parts that go in your car? Problematic in a lot of ways, but we'll keep going. Number 3, the unfortunate reality is the children's product, Just For Me, contains more hazardous chemicals than the products you use to clean your tub and the product that some adults use to manage their hair. I'm going to pause there because you should have some colorful words and choice comments going through your head. At least I did when I first learned about this particular work. And then lastly, number 4, the high number of chemicals and health hazards is partially due to fragrances contained in these products. And these EDCs have been linked to chronic health effects, including cancer. Fragrance is one word that means dozens to hundreds of chemicals that you will never see listed on the product because it's protected by a trade secret. I am fortunate enough to live in California, where we recently passed SB 312, where now manufacturers have to disclose fragrance ingredients in their products that are sold in California. Now, so I've mentioned this word a few times already, endocrine disrupting chemicals, or EDCs. So I'm going to go through just a little bit of content on what they actually are. So EDCs are chemicals that interfere with the body's endocrine system, which is made up of your glands and organs that produce, store, and secrete hormones. In other words, these chemicals interfere with the way the body's hormones work. These chemicals are found everywhere, literally everywhere in our environment, including our personal care products. And they can affect your health, including your risk for cancer. So for the remainder of kind of the discussion that we're having, I'm going to focus on EDC exposures and breast cancer risks, with an emphasis on Black women. Again, emphasis on Black women. So there are additional information on other ethnic groups, other racial and ethnic groups. However, for this particular conversation, I'm going to focus on us. So let's talk a bit about what we know about the disease. But before I do that, I'm just going to, some of these faces may look familiar. Oftentimes when I go to conferences, they just go straight into this number of people get it, this number of people are dying from me, and then that's it. But that's not the full story. And as we've heard from Jamelle, as we heard from Janae last week, as we heard from Shoni, that is not the full picture. They are numbers, but however, to scientists, but they're also people, and they're people to their families, they're people to their community members, and their stories matter, right? So we know that the impact of breast cancer, that word cancer, when you hear it impacts that individual, yes, but it also impacts their families and us, their community. So I just want to just leave this space to one, say, thank you all for being in this space. And I want to take this opportunity to also honor those that are not with us. So if you have individuals that you've lost, that you want to just uphold within the space, feel free to drop their names. If you want to hold their names in your heart, because unfortunately they did not survive the disease, feel free to do that now. Just want to hold space for that. But I also want to celebrate the individuals that are here with us as well. So that's, including the ones that are in this space, there are over 3.8 billion lives that are still with us today because of research, because of screening and advancements in treatment. So while there are inequity issues as it relates to access, especially, yes, where you live does determine how long and how well you live. We also want to celebrate those individuals that have survived. So this is what you're normally used to when you go to, when you hear scientists talk, is they want to give you the numbers. So let's actually give the numbers as it relates to breast cancer. Many of these, most of you will know. So breast cancer is the second leading cause of death in women. 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed in their lifetime. 5% to 10% of breast cancer cases are hereditary. Black women are 40% more likely to die from the disease than white women. Black women are more likely to get triple negative breast cancer, which we all know is an aggressive cancer type that comes back after treatment oftentimes. And there are higher incidents among Black women younger than age 40. Many of the women are in this room, and many examples have also been shared with you in the previous slide. So for the remainder of this presentation, what I'm going to do is really focus on exposures of endocrine disrupting chemicals in our personal care products, the literature, a brief literature review around that, and the potential role in explaining some of these disparities that I've outlined on this slide. So I'm going to do this in 2 ways. I'm going to provide context from the laboratory space, and then also context from the epidemiological literature. And this is going to focus on parabens specifically and breast cancer findings in the laboratory, because that is what my research group is currently working on. And I'll share a little bit of what we're doing later on in this presentation. So for those of you that don't know, parabens are preservatives known as EDCs that are found in our personal care products, and they've been found in higher concentrations in urine samples of Black women. Parabens also increase cell proliferation, which means cell growth. They decrease cell death, and they've also been shown to alter gene expression of white breast cancer cell lines. And I want to denote white breast cancer cell lines because, unfortunately, even though it's 2021, researchers in this space that don't look like us didn't think to include Black cell lines into the equation. But it's okay, because we are now with our group. On the epidemiological side, we know that Black women carry the burden of EDC exposures found in hair and other personal care products. We also know Black women use these products prior to age 13, even as young as 5 years old. We've had women that are part of our study, previous studies, that have had relaxers, for example, as early as 5 years old. And then other examples is that hair oils and relaxers have been shown to be associated with early periods, which we know is a risk factor for breast cancer. And permanent and Black hair dyes have been associated with the 45% and 51% risk of the disease as well. So I wanted to highlight this particular researcher because one, she's one of my mentors, and then two, she's also a badass. I know this is being recorded, but she's a badass, period. But I want to highlight her particular study on this area is because this is an example of research for us, by us, and with us, right? Which is the dream goal as we have this conversation around equity. Research without us, leaving us out of the equation, only continues to perpetuate disparities in our communities. And Black women are the ones that are dying from the disease the most, as I've stated earlier. So Dr. Adanya Llanos is currently an assistant professor at Rutgers University, but she actually will be moving on to Columbia University as an associate professor. She's already announced that. So I get to share that good news with you all. So if you see her on Twitter, go ahead and go congratulate her because she's going through the academic process, which is not necessarily the easiest. So I just want to applaud her in the space as well. And let's take a look a little bit more about what she found in her study. And I provided some context in a previous page that stated that dark hair dye are associated with a 51% increase for African-American women. And it's also one of the important notes of this particular study is that higher frequency of use of dark hair dyes. This means that individuals that use dark hair dyes more than twice a year, that particular endpoint was associated with ER positive disease. And then information on white women with the disease, they also found an increased risk for relaxer use and the dual use of relaxers and hair dyes for white women. And the use of dark hair dyes was associated with an increased risk for ER positive disease. So I know that was a lot, but I feel like here's your time to breathe, and here's a pause question that I think all of us can answer. So in the chat again, go ahead. Thank you, Shonda, for sharing Dr. Llanos's Twitter information. So in the chat again, indulge me a little bit and go ahead and answer this question. Can cigarette smoking cause lung cancer? I think everyone can respond to this. Yes. Okay. So we're all in agreement that cigarette smoking can cause is a risk factor for increasing your risk for lung cancer. So a natural reaction or response to this question as I'm looking at people's faces is, why is she asking me about cigarettes and lung cancer when we've been having a conversation about EDCs and breast cancer? Great question. So once upon a time, not everyone agreed that cigarettes cause lung cancer. So in fact, it's only been about 80 plus years, a little over 80 years, that studies from animal experiments, chemical analysis, and epidemiology concluded that cigarettes were in fact a risk factor for increase your risk for getting lung cancer. And unfortunately, regardless of the evidence that was provided, only 1/3 of US doctors up until the 1960s believed this conclusion. Furthermore, in our communities, some of us operate from the reality that it won't be me. I love my people, but we do have, it won't be me. So as quoted from one of our Black male participants, there is a little note on every package of cigarettes: harmful to your health, may cause cancer. My mom and dad smoked their whole lives. They never got cancer. I try to believe that even if that studies show Black hair products cause cancer, you're going to get those men and women that say, well, not everyone is going to get it. And that's really the reality of the conversation that we're having today, is that most oftentimes, because of historical trauma, lack of trust between researchers and the like, there are going to be community members that are not going to agree with everything that comes out of the literature. So that's why our group is really working hard to bring community members along the journey as it relates to this project that I'm going to be sharing. So are the chemicals in our hair products increasing my risk for breast cancer? Unfortunately, I can't say yes to that question. And I also can't say no to that question, because the reality is there is evidence that supports that there is a strong association. There's also evidence that supports that the association is not there. So there are various number of reasons and why there are differences in outcomes. And a lot of it is because how, for example, how was it measured, et cetera? How were the outcome variables and other variables associated with this particular question measure, et cetera. But as a part of the scientific community, it's almost, I have to tell you that more research is needed, because we do need more research in this area to tease out what's happening. However, as a Black woman and as someone that God has given a brain to, I also just want you to use your common sense. And the reason why I say this is because why all of us can't agree. I just asked the question, is cigarettes smoking increasing your risk for lung cancer? It took a very long time for all of us to say yes. And when I say all of us, the scientific community, the lay audience, et cetera. So this research area, while it's emerging, I'm gonna provide some resources and tools for you to get to know more about the products and the chemicals that you are exposing to your body, period. Okay, so if you want to take a screenshot during any time in this presentation, this will be it. There are a number of tools out there that will get you started in a path to really getting to know the products, your personal care products, and also your household products specifically as well, and their exposures to your health. One of my go-to apps is EWG, which is the Healthy Living application. It provides a hazard score between 1 and 10, 1 being low hazard, 10 being high hazard. It also includes household products, etc. Think Dirty has a similar format and focus, but less products. So I think EWG right now has the most products that they have tested. Unfortunately, not necessarily tested, but that's a part of their platform. Unfortunately, there is not a large percentage of Black-owned products. However, there is enough for you to get to know what you are using from your hair and skin, etc. The Clearia app is actually a Google Chrome ad that if you are an Amazon shopper like I am, or if you shop with Sephora, for example, it'll actually flag the products in your cart before you purchase it and provide information on health hazards as it relates to endocrine disrupting chemicals exposures in your products. And if you are wanting to go on this journey of detoxing your life, then I will recommend the Detox Me app that also provides avenues for you to create your products and reduce your exposure as well. Here's another opportunity for you to lend your voice. So we've spoken in depth about advocacy, and I'm going to share with you some information on the next slide on how you can get involved with this work on a federal level. Because the unfortunate reality is there's a 2-page federal document that was developed in 1938, so that was over 80 years ago. That is the only legislation that we have that determines what is put on our shelves. So I'll let that sink in. 1938, 80 plus years ago, 83 years ago, to be exact, is the only page legislation that determines what goes into your product. And unfortunately, FDA does not remove products from off the shelf, even if it's been shown to be cancerous. Like formaldehyde, for example, has been shown to be cancerous, but however, it's still in products that we use as well. So I want to take this opportunity to share with you work that I'm doing in the community. It's called Bench to Community, where I've partnered with community members as well as a basic scientist, Dr. Lindsay Trevino. This is our team. Very, very colorful with Black women, Black men, and all the things. Some of us have PhDs, others do not, but we're all here because we love our communities and we think it's a disgrace that we have to even do this type of research because we are not protected with the products that we are using. So this project is twofold. And in the laboratory, like I shared earlier, parabens, we talked a little bit about from those previous 2 slides. We're looking at parabens, and we're actually testing 3 different types of parabens, which are preservatives found in your products, on luminal A and triple negative breast cancer cell lines. As I stated earlier, this area of EDC exposure science, unfortunately, as it relates to the cell line area, has not included breast cancer cell lines, and we are including them as a part of this discussion because it's important. If you are interested in learning a little bit more about what some of our preliminary findings are, I'm going to tell you about a really cool initiative that is in partnership with community members that is virtual that you can join later during the year if you're interested in learning more about this area of EDC exposure. The second phase of this project is really looking at the social behavior factors that inform hair product selection and use for Black women that have survived the disease specifically. So our focus is on increasing the voices of Black women as a part of our sample, but everyone is welcome to participate in our study as well. And the goal is to bring together all of this information that we're collecting to improve lives in the form of developing an intervention for Black women that have survived the disease to reduce your exposure risk for exposure risk from personal care products, but also to improve quality of life after treatment. So we're just including this little bit aspect of it because I am fully aware that there are other things that are on your mind as it relates to surviving the disease, but we're going to be including this conversation around exposure as well. So here are a number of ways that you can get involved, and I'll share some of this link after this talk. One, we do have a survey that we are asking people to lend their voices to, and I'll include the link of the survey in the comments in the chat later. And then we also have, again, this really awesome space titled Salon Conversations, and it's a platform that's been coined by our community advisor, Tanya Fairley, where we bring, similar to what Pull Up a C is doing and also what GRASP is doing, bring together science with community members. You don't have to be a survivor to be a part of it. If you're a community member that is interested in reducing your exposure as it relates to EDCs and your personal care products, you're welcome to join. But we also talk about advocacy, like the role of advocacy and how do you go about doing this as a lay community member. So I want to invite you all to join us for Salon Conversations. I'll share some dates now as it relates to advocacy. Specifically, we had a Salon Conversations back in March with Janet Noldeman. So a lot of the information that I shared in terms of the different chemicals in the personal care product as well as the cleaning product was done by breast cancer prevention partners. And we had a discussion about advocacy with one of their directors of policy. And it was a really insightful conversation that if you're interested in doing more work in this space, I want to encourage you to check out our YouTube channel to listen to that conversation that took place in March. Our next Salon Conversation is going to focus on environmental working group Skin Deep database. So that was the application that I shared with you. So in September 21st, if you're interested in learning how to use that application and learn more about how it was developed, then I invite you to that conversation so you can learn more about how to reduce your exposure risk as well. And if you're a science geek and want to learn about the laboratory work that we're doing, we're going to be having a conversation with Lindsay Trevino in November 1st, where we're going to share a little bit of the preliminary data that we've been doing in the laboratory as it relates to both Black and white cell lines focused on luminal A breast cancer specifically. And keep in touch with us. So if any of what I said is hitting home and you're just like, I want to learn more, why didn't anybody tell me this? Then I invite you to be a part of the conversation, whether it's on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, etc. So I'll leave you all with these take-home messages. I've kind of stalked some of the panelists and they have these same messages on their social media platforms, like check it on the first, know what your normal is. For those of us in here that don't know what that means, like touch your boobs, get to know what your body feels like. It's empowerment more than anything, but it could also save your life as it saved Shoni's life, and when she found her lump herself, right? So, and also I just want to leave you all with know what's in your products. Like I said, legislation 1938, over 80 plus years old, and FDA is very slow to take anything off the market. And to give you some context, European Union has banned over 1,500 chemicals of concern from our products, and the United States from the federal space has banned less than 30. So that should give all of us some pause, and why I'm going to encourage you to lend your voices to the advocacy process if you're able to, and join us, join the Benchley community family if you're wanting to support the work that I'm doing and also others in this space. So that is it for me, and I'll take some questions now if people have it.
Wow, thank you so much. Can we just give a virtual round of applause, or if you want to put on your screen and just give a hand clap for that presentation, which was incredibly informative and just filled with information. I hope you all took screenshots. We will have this recorded as well if you didn't, and we'll share some of that as well. I know that we also wanted to have some of our breakout sessions as well. So we're going to break out into our conversations, and which will be pretty intimate. And then in that we can talk about the presentation that we just heard, share about your stories. What were some points that really stuck out to you? And then when we come back, we're gonna, please feel free, if there's something you'd like to ask Dr. Teteh, please do so, write it in the chat so you don't forget. So when we come back, that you can be able to share it with her. So I'm going to ask you to bear with me just a minute to see how we're going, bear with us as we just try to coordinate, the breakout sessions. Resume. Okay, great. So just waiting for everyone else to come on so we can finish our conversation. Wow, what a great, I'm sure that it was really, I know the time always runs out. It seems like we have so much time in those rooms and it goes by in a blur. So yeah, I just wanted us to be able to, have a conversation before, and I would like to ask Jamelle and Shoni if you can just, share about some of the takeaways from the conversation. But right before you all go into that, I just wanted to, I know there was a question in the chat before we went into our breakout rooms, and it was about why doesn't the FDA regulate EDCs? So it might have been a question that was answered in the breakout rooms, but for the sake of, since we're recording this, if Dr. Teteh, if you could please, explain why doesn't the FDA regulate EDCs?
Yeah, sure. So we are in the United States, and there's this body of people called Congress. I hope you guys voted for your people that are currently in office. If you didn't, you have an opportunity to vote them out next year. So just the FYI, right? So Congress essentially, so the federal document that I said, 2 pages, 1938. That's what's been approved by Congress. And what Congress does is they designate institutions like the FDA to actually provide regulations to regulate, right? So unfortunately, the FDA does not regulate cosmetics or personal care products the way that they do drugs, biologics, and medical devices. Again, so they have to work on behalf of Congress using that 2-page document, 2 pages. So if you don't know where I'm going with this, it's like you have to use your voice in a federal space, because we don't have any federal regulations that's really protecting us from the crap that's in our, you're recording this, it's okay. This is just me, this is how I show up everywhere. So unfortunately, the cosmetic products and the ingredients do not need FDA pre-market approval. So I think all of us are kind of familiar with what happened with the vaccines, right? So they got emergency pre-authorization for us to use it. It's still under emergency use authorization, right? So you have to get pre-approval from the FDA to put biologics, medical devices, and drugs onto the market. That's not the case for cosmetic products. So that's why when you turn on your Instagram account, there's somebody making products at their kitchen sink and they put it on the market and you don't know what's in it, and it's okay. Because unfortunately, the FDA doesn't really do anything until they attempt to try to take things off the market, but not really, because they are governed by a 2-page document from 1938. I don't know if that answers your question, but unfortunately, on a federal space, we just don't have the regulation to regulate our personal care products. So they're putting it on, and I quote, "It's the companies and the manufacturer's job to make sure that products are safe." Yay! So Johnson & Johnson cares about Black women enough where they've been selling us products, for example, baby powder that causes cancer, and they won't take it off the market. So it's been banned from Europe, but unfortunately, because of the United States is the United States of America, a capitalistic society that don't give a damn about people and only care about money, that product, Johnson & Johnson, actually, you know what they did? They actually started marketing it more in the Black and brown communities because their sale prices was going down. And did the FDA do anything about it? Did they recall it? No, because why? It's been, yeah, what they can do is governed by a 2-page document from 1938. So I'll take this space now to let you know, please, please, please utilize your voice to vote whenever you can in every single election, including your local elections. Because as an immigrant from Togo, West Africa, who just became a naturalized citizen not too long ago, my first election was President Barack Obama, forever my president. And that was my first time voting in the election. However, you as individuals that were born in this country, that have the privilege as citizens of this country, have a voice to contribute to how your personal care products are regulated. So I just want to encourage all of you all. The reason why the FDA is not regulating your personal care products is because it's been governed by a 2-page document from 1938. That is the long and short answer of it. However, I am not the expert in this area, but I am, however, what I do is I bring together experts to have conversations with community members. And we did just that in March. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drop that conversation into the chat from YouTube. It's a beautifully done presentation by Janet Nolderman, a breast cancer prevention partner. She is a wealth of information. And what I'm hoping to do as I'm now engaged in this space with Tiger Lily is to share the information that's coming out of this space with all of you all, so you can be a part of the change that you want to see. So I hope that answers your question. But that is the long and short of it all. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, it does. I think, well, I didn't ask the question, but I think, Lizzie, it does. It definitely helps with that. And I would love to hear, I mean, well, this is a side tangent, but about the SVE or SVE, the bill that you talked about in California, that act that was passed. I'm curious to see how that, if you could share about it so that we can see in our other states how we can also be able to advocate to see that if that can also happen in our, at our state level as well.
Yeah, so that's an excellent question, and Janet does a better job of answering that question than I do. But what I can tell you is essentially SB 130. Let me find it so I don't tell you. So it's SB 312, and it's the Cosmetic Fragrance and Flavor Ingredient Right to Know Act of 2020. So it's authored by one of, so I live in San Bernardino County, and Senator Connie Leyva covers a part of our territory. And it was signed into law by Governor Newsom last year. So essentially the conversation that we had from those 3 bottles that I shared with you, one of the main corporates was fragrance. And what this law specifically does is it makes manufacturers provide information on what is incorporated in that one word, fragrance. Everywhere else outside of California, they don't have to. But what generally happens is California sets the stage and all the other states follow. So they've done it for a number of years, especially with public health legislation and advocacy. So you're seeing even now with the Crown Act. The Crown Act was passed in California, and now other states are jumping on the board. But these are state legislations, right? So the law that I talked about from a federal space, that is still in progress, right? And unfortunately, the reason why I make the correlation with the tobacco company is because if you all remember, it's like a tobacco company looked everyone dead in their face and it was like, nah, cigarettes don't cause lung cancer. I don't know what you're talking about. We don't know nothing about that. And they were sitting on years and years of research that said otherwise, right? And the reason why I make a correlation to that is because this is a billion-dollar industry, of which Black women pay into more than any other racial and ethnic group. So you have buying power, first of all. So if you stop using these products and if you get other people on board, your voice in a lot of ways matters also in the legislative space. And that's what we really try to encourage our community members by hosting these salon conversations to say, this is the way that you do it. And Breast Cancer Prevention Partners makes it very easy for you to actually contribute to this discussion. And I'm going to drop the link of their Take Action link onto the chat. And they have a number of ways that you can just simply add your name to a list. And that information gets sent directly to your Congress member to let them know, hey, by the way, this is important to me. So if a bill comes up on your desk about this, you need to say yes to it, because if you don't, I'm gonna kick you out of the office, because I can do that because you work for me. So I'm going to drop that link in the chat. And what I want you all to do is share it with your friends, because that's also important. So what we're doing in California is going to hopefully have a domino effect in other states. And again, if you want to learn more, take a listen to the information that Janet provides during that salon conversation, and then hop onto our IG page where I posted kind of like 3 questions as it relates to how do other states get involved. So that was a question that she answered. And I think she does a better job of doing that than I do. So you can kind of get some of that information off of our social media page as well. Hope that helps.
Yes, that was really helpful. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're gonna have Jamelle, if you can share a little bit, some of the takeaways and just conversation. How was it in your breakout room? What were some of the takeaways from there? And then
we had a really good conversation. Mostly I was telling, my story about how I started getting relaxers at a young age as well, since when I was about 15 years old. And this is something, growing up in a black household, your mom takes you to the salon and get a relaxer, and I was getting them all the way up until, I was diagnosed. And I was just telling them how, like, now that my hair is growing back, this is my first time since I was a teenager that I'm going natural, and how I'm going to probably take a little bit more look at the products I'm putting in my hair now. Definitely not doing any more relaxers, but also just being more mindful of products that I'm using for my hair and also my daughter as well. Because, seeing those statistics and seeing those ingredients really opened my eyes. It was kind of really, shaking me up a little bit, because I'm like, I was putting that chemical in my body for almost 20 years. And then I do not want to pass that same, down to my daughter as well. Like, no relaxers, we're going to be, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to stop that chain right here. So again, a really good conversation. It definitely was eye-opening for me, and a lot of the things hit home for me in my personal life and my cancer story. So, yeah.
Thanks, Jamelle. Yeah, so glad that for those takeaways and being able to share, and even sharing about your experience too with wearing, with relaxers. And kudos to you for going natural, and like you said, the products, being able to be aware of that. And
yes,
so it's awareness, right? Like, that's the reason that you all are sharing your stories, and by sharing and talking about this, we're getting greater awareness. You can now pass that on to your daughter, which is wonderful, and to your family members. Have these conversations. It's a holiday weekend. Not holiday weekend, but holiday weekend is coming up. So, we're going to have opportunities for cookouts and different get-togethers to be able to share and be like, listen, this is what I learned. This is what y'all need to, check this out. Look at these apps and stuff, love me some Sephora, just check it, link it together and see clean beauty products, all these different things. And what is clean is a whole other conversation, I'm sure, because we love to blur the line when it comes to these things. So thank you so much. Thank you all for participating in that conversation too. Shoni, yeah, please go ahead.
So most of what we spoke about, it kind of went off of not really the products per se, but just basically how much work needs to still be done. And just to, piggyback off Jamelle, I was that kid that had my relaxer early, but it was sadly because my mom was sick and someone else needed to comb our hair, like myself and my sister's hair. And they said, no, let's perm it. And it was too late. My mom was in the hospital and she was like, you did what to my baby's hair? And after that, it just became a cycle because my hair was always thick and long. And people were like, how do you have all that hair on your head? I'm like, genetics. I don't know what to tell you. But then when my hair was straightened, it was like, it's more acceptable that it's all this hair on my head. But I had stopped, honestly, using any type of relaxer. My hair, probably since my mom passed, about 20 years, I've been natural. And I have been looking at the products that we're all, all the products that are labeled for the natural hair. And even when you go in the store, there's a section, it says natural hair, and then it's everyone else's hair. And I even see sometimes those are the cabinets that are locked and they're the most expensive. Have we noticed that? Yes. So I even with that, I try to just use as many natural things as possible. And sometimes my hair for a very long time, even right after treatment, water. People used to ask, how do you get your hair to curl up? Water. It does it by itself. Water. I don't know. So it's just, and we even were speaking about, Julia was telling me that she was able to go to to Memorial Sloan Kettering due to her insurance and, the help from the navigators in her system where she was. And I was, speaking to the fact that there's a Memorial Sloan Kettering that's not even 15 minutes away from me and my insurance won't allow me to go there. And that speaks to like the whole disparities right there, that I'm right there and can't get in, and you came from another state and can get in. So got work to do.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Definitely have work to do. We got to roll up our sleeves and speak on it, I mean, like last week we shared that zip code conversation and showed the video. This is an example of that right there. And I think honestly, actually, I think it'd be really good if we have a video showing like two different experiences of people. You literally are 15 minutes away. Julia is in a different state. You want to talk about what's happening? That's it right there. So I think that we should definitely do that after, because we need to raise awareness about it and let people know. This is why it's so good to have these conversations, because speaking about it and being transparent, we are able to connect these dots and be able to say like, this is what's going on. And I really do think like, way after this, that we should definitely like connect, the three of us and talk about how we can, I think all of us are going to connect in different ways, but definitely to be able to share that message would be really, it's very important. Another thing I wanted to share, I know a friend of mine who as a survivor, she, that after treatment, her doctor recommended that she not use aluminum deodorant with aluminum in it. Right. So why is it after that you're recommending that now? Like, why wasn't it before that you're saying that you shouldn't have use aluminum in your products? So, I see now like a lot with like the aluminum free deodorant or these different things, like it's being pushed out as being more normal now, like the larger companies. But if you're recommending that for someone who has gone through treatment, why, again, prevention, right? So these are all just really important. It's just the more knowledge, the more we know, the more that we're able to share that. And I just want to thank each one of you for your participation and being here and your holding space, right? It's been phenomenal. To Dr. Teteh, for your information, for your passion for what God has placed on your heart to be able to share, and has gifted you to be able to really, share with others and speak your truth and be unapologetic about it. We have to use our voices and to be able to say, this is what's going on. So I'm just really thank you, and bench to community. We're so looking forward to the work that, partnering and doing work together, collaborating. For the Breast of Us. It's such a great organization. We had Marissa on here before, like 2 months ago. Nadia Smith, who was also part of an ambassador for the Breast of Us, is on. Now we have Shoni, we have Jamelle, like all these phenomenal women that are participating. And the more that we connect together, the stronger we are together, the more that we can really, because we're all working towards the same goal, that's saving lives, especially saving lives in general, especially raising awareness within our communities. Because I mean, the disparity is there, the number is there. You shared about it, this 40% that we've been seeing. One of our previous conversations talked about it was at the same level until the 80s. And then there was a drastic shift in that. I think it was Dr. Ewing that presented and shared about that information. So what was it that caused this? It just continues to decline from the 80s. Why? And it's that access to care. It's the access to resources, access to being able to go to those cancer centers, access to clinical trials, access the fact that in these data, in the research that we're seeing, we aren't included, our DNA, or I think you were talking about a specific kind of gene or whatever, specifically like that strain isn't being included in that, to be able to really understand how that affects the communities of color. So the more that we have representation in science, in these rooms, bringing our own, like you said, building our own tables if they aren't there, we can do that. Black Twitter is really big and is able to shut stuff down. Black TikTok is shutting stuff down right now and going on strike with dances. So, our voices together are so important. So I'm really looking forward to us continuing to move forward and then also working towards advocacy. Vote, vote, vote. Yes, let's see, like the Crown Act, that's been passed in some of our states, but also how can, with the fragrance, this that you just shared, I dropped the information, the link. Let's come together, work together towards seeing how we can do this on a larger scale and amplifying, holding people accountable. We did elect these officials, so let's hold them accountable to save lives. So thank you all so much for joining. This is going to be recorded and it'll be shared on YouTube as well. And we'll continue to be definitely in touch. This is our space. It's a community that we have created. You're officially part of the Pull Up a Seat No More Disparities community. And we're so happy and delighted to have you. We're all family. So I just hope you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Be inspired, maybe throw out some products. This might be a good time to clear some things out, look over some things, maybe do some shopping in a different way. Yeah, let's help each other. So if there's anything else, I'm going to stop talking, but if there are any like last minute, anything that you want to share, please feel free to do so.
I just have one thing. You mentioned they're coming up a holiday and that we're going to have barbecues. We need to actually start talking about that, because that is tradition with a lot of Black community to barbecue, and we already know what barbecue does.
Yes.
Enough said.
Yes.
That's funny because it's actually my birthday too. My birthday's the 4th of July, so there's always a party for that reason. But yeah.
Well, happy early birthday to
Yes,
you.
happy early birthday.
Yes, what a blessing, honestly.
Yeah.
What a blessing of life to you.
Yeah, this year is definitely, this birthday hits different for sure. I'm turning 35, so it's a milestone one. And but yeah, I had to fight to get to this one, but I'm blessed to still be here. So I'm definitely going to be celebrating.
Yes. We're going to celebrate you too. We will. We're definitely going to post and celebrate you on your birthday and just honor you.
I'm not about to sing.
Happy
birthday to you. Okay.
Oh, she's frozen. Yay. Jamelle's frozen.
Oh, she's frozen.
I know.
I'm all about incorporating our what we do best, music. We were singing happy birthday to you, but you were frozen.
I was frozen for a second. Sorry about that.
Enjoy your birthday.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.